What's up, everybody? I am Eric. This is Gary. Today we are smoking the 3 blends. It's a newer barber pole from Veritas Cigars with 3 different wrappers. Super cool smoke. And today is opening day of baseball. It's April Fool's Day. We're really just talking about new beginnings, sharing some great stories, having a couple laughs as always. This is Cedar Culture.
Kick back and relax, it's time to shoot the shit. Hanging out with the broskies, Gary and Eric. Let the ash go long and the convo stay pure. That's Cedar Culture. That's Cedar Culture. That's Cedar Culture.
Let's bundle these leaves and burn them and suck on them.
Yeah, the whole thing about like, oh, we get 4 seasons and that's what we enjoy, and it's okay that it's not nice year-round in Jersey. We get 4 seasons. Yeah, as we get older, like, fuck that. I'll take 1 season and I want it to be like late spring.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Like the hots, I'm finding I'm worse off than the colds. Even like sledding with my kids, it was like, I was like, it was fun, but
yeah,
I'm ready
you
for
do it on vacation or something.
Exactly.
So, all right, so this is a fun stick. Here, go ahead, take the stick. So
Thank
this
you.
was one that one of our friends gave us actually to try out. It's a brand that he actually represents, and kind of just showed up in our mailbox one day with a little note, and he was very generous of Jeff.
Cool.
We'll go ahead and we'll put his links in the bio
Absolutely.
and everything, or in the description, to where you can hook up with him and learn more about the cigars that he represents. But this is one of them. It's from Veritas Cigars. Now, there's one thing you probably didn't notice about, and I'm glad you didn't notice it, because you were trying not to look too much. This is the first time you're seeing this.
First time I'm seeing it.
Look at the top and look at the bottom. There's something kind of unique and interesting about it.
Look at the top. Look at the bottom. Oh wow!
Yeah,
It's like a half box press.
It's half box press, so it's got a taper, so it goes from round to box press.
I'm glad I figured it out, because I was like, man, I'm gonna be like, oh, it's round up here.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's funny. So it's round top, box press at the bottom. Does it do much for the taste? I don't know, probably not. But mental, the way you feel about a steak is certainly gonna kind of play into how it tastes for you. And what else is cool is, so this is a barber pole with 3 different leaves. 3 different wrappers, so it's got a sun-grown Ecuadorian, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut leaf on it. So you got some U.S.-based leaf there, 3 different leaves. The brand itself, they've got a corporate headquarters in Hawaii, but their factory, they actually have their own small factory in Esteli.
Wow.
Yeah, so really excited to give this one a try.
And Veritas is, I believe, truth in Latin, right? Veritas.
I just think Boondock Saints, whatever. I think it's something like that. So. Why don't you go ahead and start cutting yours up here? So a couple more things I want to share about it.
Great smell off it, man. Really nice tobacco, like
sweet tobacco,
sweet hay, some grass in there.
Yeah. So one thing I really liked, when these showed up at our doorstep, I went and started doing a little research, and one of the first things I learned about the Veritas, the brand, from their website. This is a quote they had, like right in their bio. They're about us. We don't hide our cigars behind fancy videos of men in tuxedos. That ain't us. We're regular guys.
Ooh.
So as soon as I read that, I'm like, okay, like we can definitely align with the brand.
Right.
So then that's from the owner, from the company. They've somewhat recently appointed a new CEO, Jason Lois. So I reached out to him on Instagram, also directly, just to ask him, hey, like, we're going to be talking about your stick. Is there anything, if we were talking about this cigar, what's the one thing you want us to pass on about this cigar?
Right.
And he responded rather quickly, actually.
Awesome.
Which was awesome. And he said, it's an excursion into a flavorful ride through a multitude of flavors, a journey to be taken and enjoyed. So just keep that in mind when you're smoking the stick.
And we've often talked about, like, what I really enjoy is that journey through the thirst. And not that a steady stick doesn't have its place, but on those nice days where you can kind of, just like today, where we can sit and enjoy. Because I'm going to tell you, brother, I've had a hell of a week with the move. I was just at a viewing for my wife's grandmother who passed, so dealing with that with the kids.
Was that their first kind of...
Not their first death, but their first death where they were really cognizant about, wow, like, even my youngest was like really afraid to go up to the casket and all, but it was good. We went through it together.
Yeah.
But why I bring that up is because I have been looking forward to just sitting down and having an hour-long vacation where we can just sit and do, like I said, man, this is my religion, it's my zen, it's my self-care, it's my mental health. Like, a cigar is so much more than just a cigar, you know. Really different because I'm holding it in my fingers in the box press, but in my mouth it's round. So like
that is weird.
Your mind, like my brain's not understanding that yet. But I'm excited for this to kind of really open up and develop a little bit and get all those wrappers and the multitude of flavors in there.
I'll tell you what, on like first light though, I normally don't like to talk too much about a stick like right on first light. Like to let it open up a little bit first, but I can definitely like there's a lot of flavors in there from light. I mean, because you're getting from jump, you're getting 3 wrappers.
Oh,
the second you light it, you're getting 3 different wrappers, and that there's a lot of depth to the flavor for sure.
And if I were going to create something like this barber pole, I like that it's this complex because sometimes like the 1 or 2 barber poles I've had are either you get your light and your dark, so you kind of get that mix, or we had the one that was at Candela and the Maduro.
Right.
And something about the bitterness and sweet just didn't hit me that day. But this, you know, those 3, you get the broadleaf, you got the light in there. I mean, it's just like we said, we just lit it. Man, that flavor profile kind of
it jumps right out
there. You don't have to search for it. You don't have to retrohale to like, what are those little nuances?
No, chocolate right from the jump, like, for sure. But it is the different, like the depths of the flavors that I'm getting out of it. So, you know, a lot of times you might say like, oh, I'm getting a chocolate, you know, not so much a sweet chocolate, a more dark chocolate, or vice versa, or whatever. And off this, I feel like I'm getting. I mean, he used the phrase a multitude of flavors, and there's no. I mean, that's the right way to say it.
You know what I think about it? You know when you're a kid and you get like a sundae and you're like, I want this ice cream, this ice cream, this ice cream, and the toppings and the whip, and you get like that scoop that has almost everything in it, and it's just decadent and rich and complex. That's what I taste. Like,
yeah,
the flavors are there, but I almost can't even pick them apart because they're just. Or like when you have a stew, like a hearty stew, and you're like, all right, there's onions, carrots, and meat.
But you don't taste any one thing.
You don't taste one thing, you taste the amalgamation of the entire thing.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Like a cigar stew.
It's all, and you know what's interesting? Today's kind of the perfect day for it. We were just saying, or I think you were just saying earlier, well, I threw in, it's baseball opening day, and you were saying just, I don't know, in general, like nicer weather.
The nicer weather's here. It's April Fool's Day. It's kind of cool to have a stick we've never had before.
Got April Fool's Day, baseball opening day, stick we've never had.
For both of our teams, the Yankees and the Phillies.
Yeah.
Both played.
And I'll tell you what, I'm actually going to get into baseball again this year.
Yeah.
So last year I wanted to get into baseball again, mostly because the team wasn't good, and if you're going to get back into a team, I think it's better to do it when they're not good. It's a little bit more authentic. So they're not good, but they brought in Joe Girardi, like a new manager, and I'm like, all right, like, this is a new era of Phillies baseball.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it because I kind of fell off, not right after the World Series. I mean, frankly, fair weather fan.
Yeah.
After they just went to complete crap, and it's like they weren't even trying. So that's why last year I was like, all right, now's the time. And then with the pandemic,
happy you guys. Girardi is
with the pandemic, I wound up not getting into it last year because it was this weird thing, right? It's like, is baseball happening? It's
artificial.
It's not. It is. And then all this, and then games are getting canceled left and right. I mean, even today, I think the Nats, and I think they're playing, they got canceled because of the COVID, something going on with COVID. But I think the Phillies are actually starting right about 30 minutes ago. So I'll catch the second half of that after we're done with stick. And I'm kind of excited for some reason. It just feels, maybe it's going back to saying as we're older, we care less about the seasons and we just want nicer weather.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because we're getting older. We're like, yeah, it's opening day. Like, just go back to that baseball sport that's a little too slow to normally watch. But as we slow down.
In years past, I always try to have like a hot dog and a beer or something on like opening day, even if it's by myself, just to kind of, celebrate it. Because baseball is so huge. Like in my youth, like just living and dying by the team and trying to watch every game. And I remember in college going to as many live games as I could.
And they're doing. There's a couple things that I just heard. I don't have them memorized, but there's some rules now with baseball teams. Like once a certain percentage of people get vaccinated on a team, they won't have to wear masks in the dugout anymore. Like they're doing their own little team herd immunity things.
That's cool.
Which you take that and then you tie that to like opening day and the nice weather, and we're getting more and more people vaccinated. So like this is the year coming out of that pandemic. So it just all ties in well to like baseball. Baseball is like a good metaphor because baseball opening day of any sport, I would say baseball has like the opening day is a thing.
Yeah, it has its ceremonial history. You know what I mean? There is. There's
and
something.
So I feel like that's a good sort of symbol for what hopefully 2021 also is, and with baseball then having the most sort of symbolic opening day, and then it being such a long season.
Most games play,
So like such a long season, we're gonna see hopefully through this pandemic to like maybe by the end of the season, it's just full stadiums and complete normalcy, and almost everybody in the country is vaccinated.
I'm knocking on our plastic wood.
So
I have an interesting, not a baseball fact, but I guess it is a fact, but it's not like a weird quizzical type thing.
I think it's a drink.
All right. So do you know the origin? Watch your headphones. Do you know the origin of the New York Yankees NY logo? Do you know how it
stands for New York?
It does. So the origin of the Yankees logo is in 1877. The first New York City police officer was shot in the line of duty. He wasn't killed, but first
what year?
city officer, 1877.
So that's not the first officer, but the
first officer shot in the line of duty. 1877 in New York City.
I wonder why none got shot earlier. Like, were there just not guns everywhere earlier? No, everybody had guns.
Yeah.
So
he was breaking up a saloon, like robbery or something, and there was like 3 people involved. He gets shot in the ear, survives, but the city commissioned Tiffany and Company to make a Medal of Honor for him, and they came up with that NY, interlocking NY.
Okay.
Struck in silver, and it was his first medal. It actually it's in some museum in New York City somewhere. When the Yankee organization developed into the Yankees, they adopted it in 1909 as their logo. It went from the sleeve to the breast, and it became their logo. But it was the original Medal of Valor, pretty much, for the New York City Police Department, made by Tiffany and Company.
That is interesting.
So yeah, just a little fact that most Yankee fans would know that. Just a cool baseball fact.
Also, I mean, that's crazy that it was to just think about that in general, like that's sort of the historical fact in general that there was a first cop. I don't know why. You just don't think about it. Like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. There was the first cop to get shot in the line of duty.
Right.
It's pretty wild.
Or maybe documented. Who knows? Maybe things happened before.
Before that, it was just you shot the cop and then you put his uniform on
and you were him.
The cop. Exactly. Like, I'm the sheriff now.
Oh, right. Like, remember back in those Wild West videos? It was like, you are the new sheriff. And the guy's like, I just drove my horse here. What are you talking about?
So in the Marine Corps, there's Marine Corps martial arts program, MCMAP. And it's the Marine Corps' combat training, and there's a belt system for it. It was developed in conjunction with Ken Shamrock, actually.
No way.
Yeah, and so it's actually kind of cool. Like, they teach you more practical moves. So you actually learn kind of it's like lightweight Brazilian jiu-jitsu with striking and more taking. You can't turn everybody into a black belt in BJJ in the Marine Corps, but giving everybody some basic holds and locks and body throws and stuff like that.
Makes complete sense, especially with the Marines, hand-to-hand combat. You're going to be close quarters.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought. But anyway.
Did you practice?
Yes. How did I just get on this?
You were saying that there's a belt system, and why did we get into the Marine? Oh, because we talked about the first cop shot.
I don't know. I just completely lost my thought.
That's awesome, man. April Fool's Day.
Yeah, John, you thought I was going to say something interesting. I got you.
Gotcha. That's cool. So were you proficient at it at all?
No, I was terrible.
Really?
I'm trying to remember why I just brought it up.
Don't worry about that.
No, it's.
Do you know the belt system? Is it like kind of martial arts, like black belt?
No, I mean, yes, it goes up to black, but it starts with tan, and that's what you get coming out of boot camp is a tan belt, because you actually have to pass the first test.
I've never heard of this.
And you go from a tan belt to a gray belt. There's a green belt.
I almost feel like you're making this up
for
me because it's April Fool's Day, and I'm gonna go talk to people and be like, dude, that's not.
No, it's called MCMAP, Marine Corps Martial Arts Program. I swear to God, still don't know why I brought it up. But it's kind of funny.
That's great. That's great.
I do remember, while we're here, I'll tell an embarrassing story about it. So I was training one day to actually go for my next belt, and I didn't want to. I didn't care about it.
It wasn't like a requirement, like you had to get to X or Y. Like if you wanted a certain rank, you didn't have to be a certain belt. Or was there anything tied to it?
I don't think so. I think you just had to maintain like a minimum belt level. Maybe you would have had to go to a second belt to go up. I'm not sure.
Let's
so
see.
It's actually kind of funny. So I you'd have to make height and weight and stuff in the Marine Corps all the time. And so one time I went and got an enema to lose weight. I swear to God, because it's a whole thing, and you want to make weight. And so
I was always a super heavyweight in anything I did.
Dude,
lifting.
It sounds weird, but like I got the enema, and then like I had my weigh-in and physical fitness test a couple days later. I don't know if it's related or not, but I can tell you I was bad at running. I never practiced running, and I ran my best 3-mile time by like 2 minutes.
No way.
I was feeling loose and limber, maybe mentally, I don't know. But the funny thing is, the day after I got the enema, we were doing martial arts training, and we're like, you're like kind of paired up, and you're doing different tactics, and then all of a sudden, like, it's like for the next day, there's just stuff coming out, and like. I had like mid-training, I'm like, time out, I gotta go take a shit, like run off to the gym. So I don't know why I brought all that up, but I figured I'll throw an embarrassing story in on top of it just to make it worth it.
I did martial arts for a little bit. I really enjoyed it. There was pictures of me somewhere, like I'm a freshman or maybe 8th, 9th grade, and I'm like doing a split on like 2 chairs.
Really?
Yeah, like almost Van Damme stuff.
Shut up.
I swear.
Really?
Yeah, if I can find me, I'm not gonna find it. We just moved, and I'm sure my parents have it somewhere. But I enjoyed.
But that's a split, like at a pretty old age.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't able to do splits, 8th, 9th. How did you lose that?
You're gonna do. Actually, for a bigger dude, I'm decently flexible.
Really?
Decently flexible.
I'm not. Well, I mean, Jesus, I was just telling you, I'm so inflexible that it's caused now like sciatic nerve impingement. I got to go to physical therapy for it just to try to lengthen and loosen the muscles in my hamstring and stuff. My left butt cheek they actually had like a force gauge or like to measure like hip strength. Mm-hmm. My left hip is 40% weaker than my right hip. So it's like all these imbalances
there's so
that
many
like,
imbalances.
But like from that, and then it's not that uncommon, but it's probably uncommon for people to have that kind of imbalance and then deadlift like over 500 pounds.
Right, exactly.
So like that's where it gets bad. And so what it did is having those muscles be so much weaker, you kind of overcompensate with the hamstring and the back,
right?
And that's what leads to extra tightness in those muscles. Kind of interesting.
So when I started Olympic weightlifting, like competitively, not just training for the shot put, like after
you should have gone with gymnastics with that flexibility.
I'm not like crazy flexible, but I think for a dude who is 6'3", 6'4",
I want to see a 6'4" dude on the parallel.
Right there, I'd straighten them out. They're the same height now. So Olympic weightlifting, and I'm trying to figure out, when you do the clean and then you jerk. I was like, well, what foot goes forward? Because it really, not that it doesn't matter, but like, it's not like what foot, we always talk about what handed you are, you're right-handed, left-handed.
Yeah.
So literally the guy was like, oh, I'll show you. He's like, I want you just to look forward. So I'm like looking forward, and he just went behind me and pushed me. Uh-huh. And whatever foot you step forward with is the one you would step forward. And I was like, what a great tool, because if he was like, hey, I'm going to push you.
Right.
I'd be like, oh, well, I was just, right. It would really mess me up. Because my right side is my strongest side, but I went left foot forward when I jerk. I don't know. And you're a lefty. When you did jerks for like CrossFit?
My left foot would go forward.
Right. So like we have different handedness, but both of our left foot.
Well, you're right-handed, right? Mm-hmm. And I imagine you're right-footed. Think you were going to kick a ball. You were going to kick your foot. Me too. So I'm left-handed. I write left-handed, but I play sports and everything right-handed.
Holden's the same way. My son is the exact same way. When he was learning to be honest, I just think the kindergarten teacher was like, well, he's holding the crown in his left hand because he does everything right. Because my biggest fear was he's going to want to throw a shot or do something or anything sport-wise, and I'm going to have to mirror image and learn it in lefty to teach him. Yeah. Thank God, now he's everything. Catches, throws righty. Yeah. Shot puts righty. Kicks righty.
I have no idea. My handwriting is also terrible, so maybe I was supposed to be right-handed when I write too.
But mine's terrible and his is terrible, and we write with different hands. So I just think it's
genetic.
Genetic. Who was the guy that could write in both? He could write with both hands. At the same
Kevin.
No,
he was the guy.
Isaac, that guy did one of the events.
Who's the guy?
He could write. He could write different things with both hands at the same time.
I know at Cherokee there was a teacher who could write over his shoulder, like while talking to the class or something. I never had him, but I remember people talking about it. Like,
it seems like a skill that you really like. Is very unpractical.
Imagine teaching the same lessons for 30 years.
That's true. That's true.
I don't know.
That's true.
I mean, it's kind of funny.
What is the name of this stick?
3 blends.
Oh, that makes sense. And there's the 3. Okay. I see it as like a mirror image of the 3.
Yeah. How's it opening up for you?
Yeah, no, I almost feel like I get a different puff as I go through the layers. So I'll get really chocolatey, and then I'll get really like creamy and mild.
Yeah. This is good.
I like it. It's interesting. It's
the
really
whole journey
interesting.
thing, the multitude of flavors, a journey to be taken and enjoyed. It definitely is a ride. Every time you kind of come back, because especially when we're talking the whole time, like you're not always thinking about the cigar. You kind of your mind checks in and out of it. It's probably true for everybody all the time, but your mind kind of checks in and out of it. And yeah, every time you come back to it, it's a little bit different. It's really good.
I really like it. I like it a lot. And I'm not a big barber pole guy, so like when I saw that it was a barber pole, I was like, all right.
Yeah,
because it can be kind of gimmicky.
It can be, and the same thing, right? Like it's half box pressed, half not. Like they're all things that can be gimmicky. But I'll tell you what, in today's cigar world, it's just like today's craft beer world, where they have to come up.
Yeah, they're nice. You have to have
supersonic milkshake, something IPA, right? And it tastes nothing like any of the names. It's got like this crazy graffiti label on it that but they have to, and so
because when you're not one of the top 5 beer brands and you're making small little micro batches, you gotta stand out.
Especially,
and we say that about labels and boxes all the time. Even the wrapper, like even like so seeing that like 3 blends together, definitely is eye catching when you walk past it.
So I learned this week something interesting. Did you know the lighter was invented before the match?
I think I heard that, but I didn't know if it was true or not.
Yeah, I wound up like researching it just to double check. And the first lighter was invented in 1816. The first strikeable match wasn't until 1827.
That's insane.
Lighters didn't become really practical and popularized until after, because once both were invented, matchsticks were instantly portable and light.
Right.
But the first lighter was a little bit more whatever. But the whole idea of a lighter itself, contraption itself, was actually before match, which is kind of crazy. But then what I thought was kind of interesting is lighters didn't really take off. They weren't really popularized until the 1930s from the Zippo brand, which I just thought was interesting because
they have their ties in military, don't they? Zippo, weren't they given to the troops?
Oh, that might be. So they say the 30s. I wonder if maybe by World War II they were more. Yeah, they were doing that. I remember it being so cool to have a Zippo when you're high school or that age or whatever. Did you ever smoke cigarettes?
I mean, to try to look kind of cool. And now, to be honest, it's funny if we're at the times I was at a bar and I'm missing a cigar, and if I'm a little, little out of sorts, I will kind of puff on a cigarette just to get some tobacco in my.
Do you inhale it?
No, not really. I just kind of get those beautiful nuances of shredded tobacco,
getting
tar.
Ammonia on the retrohale.
I'm getting yuck and camel piss on the this. But that fact is really interesting because it reminds me that the canned food was invented 20 years before the can opener.
Yep.
So you just used a knife and hopefully didn't slice your fingers off.
Yeah, so I was reading that, and I forget, who was it? It's something to do with, some war and preserving food for longer and canning it. But the initial cans that they used were steel and everything. So they were hard to get into. So the guys they would have to use different things to try to break.
I didn't dull on your knife.
But at least it wasn't, at least it was preserved. They were able to eat. That is an interesting one too. And another interesting fact is people can go to cedarculture.com and check out our t-shirts. Just dropped a new t-shirt. Humidor Dog's pretty awesome. There's also a cigar grading scale there. So if you're interested in trying to keep track of what you think about sticks over time and want to remember what you thought about it, so if you should smoke it again or not, that's another great resource on our website, as well as a recommendation quiz. So for some people just getting into cigars, or if you have friends that are just getting into cigars, you just send them to cigarsforbeginners.com and take a little quiz, and I'll recommend a cigar based on some of the other tastes. So just some interesting stuff we have going on over there at cedarculture.com.
Absolutely.
#ad for ourselves.
Big time. Big time.
So funny. So last time we met just 1 week ago, which means it's the episode that came out last. When this one comes out, I was talking about how I talking about dating, and I actually had a successful date.
Yeah.
Well, now we haven't talked in days. I don't know what's going on. So remember I was saying she was going to Florida?
Yeah.
And like, I think, it's a little bit of a kiss of death, right? Like the idea of going on one date and then, just going away for 10 days right after. But in today's day and age with texting and stuff, like you can still keep in touch.
Yeah.
And she's just, to her own, like admission, like she said, she just has this big wall up and wants to put this big space. Well, like she'd rather get to know somebody in person rather than text and all this stuff. Like, well, okay, I guess. So, we would only text a couple times, which is fine, a couple times a day or whatever. Yeah. And she might go like 8 hours without replying, which is weird, but okay, you have this little wall up. But then she's gotten to where now she's go like a day and a half without, like, this whole thing with people like having walls, like I get it, but saying you have a wall up is another way of saying I'm going to play games with you. It really is, and the idea of saying, because what you're saying when you say I'm going to put a wall up, right? What you're saying is I'm going to feel one way, but I'm going to act differently to you. Like if there's nothing more gamey, then purposely acting different than how you feel. So it just what the thing is, I think people forget when you put up walls, they work both ways. Right. So you're protecting yourself from me, you're also protecting me from you, and now there's just the Grand Canyon between us. How do we get to know each other? I don't quite get that.
And the hard part is, especially in something so new, like you don't know anyone's history enough to be like, oh well, it's because X, Y, Z.
Exactly. So I actually said to her, and I said this in the last episode. I was like, man, how cool is it after the date? I told her, we were texting a little bit after the date, and how cool is it that this person that we barely know each other, but I was able to say to her, like, hey, when you text and then disappear for a day, like, that's weird. Like, it just, I was like, if you need a little space, like, that's fine, but just say, like, hey, I'm going to go do X, Y, Z, I'll text you later. Like, like you kind of button up the conversation and move on instead of just disappearing for a couple of days, like, after I asked you a question, and then coming back to answer it a day and a half later, like nothing, that's weird. So I said all that to her, and she's like, okay, like, that's fair, I can do that, and that made me feel really good. But then she hasn't adjusted. So the reality is, and she would say something. She did say something like, "Well, like the amount of time, like how much I text somebody doesn't indicate how I feel about them," which is fair. But I'm not asking to text me more. Like I'm asking for just a human courtesy of like buttoning up a conversation before you disappear for 2 days. So to me, that just feels like it's a little bit indicative of the person.
It is, and like we said, we don't know. Like I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt as well, and I'm super proud because it's hard to like sit and be internal and say, well, this is my need and what I need filled, and I'm going to be open about that because I want something to possibly progress and be good. But like as a parent, I kind of get it because my kids like don't care that I've been at work or stressed or whatever. Like I get home and they're like, we want to see Dad. We want to play. We want to do things. Like I know you got to unpack, the new house, whatever it is. They don't care my level of stress.
Right.
They want my time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I get it. I have to kind of put some of my stuff aside to make sure they're getting what they need from me too.
Right.
In hopes that one day when I'm old and enfeebled, they may be able to provide for me too. And I want them to have a good, well-rounded life.
For sure.
But so I'm looking at it through both having dated and now, people who require my time, I can't just be like, sorry, kids, like, I have a wall up. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work that way. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing that it kept going back to in my head was, when she said the amount of I text somebody doesn't indicate how I feel about them, which is fair. Because and she said, I'd like to get to know somebody in person better, also fair. Like, that all makes great sense. Right. But again, while the volume of texting might not indicate how you feel about somebody, the way you treat somebody certainly indicates how you feel about them.
That's a good point.
And so would you disappear, like if a friend asked you a question in text, would you just see it and then not reply for a day and a half? Right. Like, that's weird, I think. I also want to say, I just realized I didn't hit record on our good audio. Recorded till now. So the first half of this episode, or first 3/4 of this episode, are with the crappy audio on the phone, unfortunately. But
I saw you push something. I was like, uh-oh.
It is what it is. Oh well.
It's how we run things.
It's how we run things here. A little haphazard at times. It's not our full-time job. Forgive us.
We were just saying it's not like we have anything stressful going on in our lives.
Yeah, nothing else in life going on that's stressful or anything. But I'm getting there on the shop. So I've definitely, like, my loan is secured.
Dude, that's great.
The
building is all but secured, so that's great. Like big load off my back.
I'm so excited for you. You put in so much. Like I didn't realize what the behind the scenes.
Me neither.
Is. I mean, obviously you didn't either. But like, man, I'll leave here, to head home. You're like, all right, I got to go review contracts and redline this and call 19 banks to hopefully get this. And then hopefully there's a contractor who's going to be able to get the work done in order to secure it. I'm like, man, I moved my entire family of 5, and I feel like your stress outweighs mine.
But it's funny because you say like I have no idea what all goes into it, and my first thought is me neither, and thank God I didn't. Because I might have just done the easier path of just taking another job offer or something like that, but ultimately been unhappy.
I think you were born and bred to kind of be your own, like something, Like, and I said, dude, you like, just even the fact of how you operate in terms of now with this, you're helping other people who are new to their journey, while you're still new to the journey.
I know that.
But that's like. When we were building the course together, we were coaches to people who were only weeks, months behind us.
Yeah, for sure.
But you especially, that's just like, it's in your nature to like teach and to want to help and do that. And I'm like, as much as you say like, oh, that's not something I'd want to do, I'm going to put it out there now. I bet in the decades ahead, you're doing some consulting, something or other.
Maybe. I don't know if I have the patience. See, I'm not a big teacher. That's the one area that is just somewhere where I'm
But you're a doer.
I am
and
a doer.
There are
consultant doers, for
You
sure.
need doers in order to learn how to get things done.
It's true.
And there are also people that are just like, okay, there's an obstacle here. Whether it's physical, mental, whatever. And you're
I'm good at problem solving and attacking those obstacles. That's where I think if I was ever a consultant, it would be like one of those things like coming in, helping solve a problem, and then moving on.
Well, like I said, the day you showed up and it was just me and you, and then you were like, I want to have this truck unloaded before any of your family gets here. Because logistically we could do it.
It was just the goal.
And we had it done. You know what I mean?
I know. And then the same thing, we were just saying where if you ever wonder where I get it from, like, so my mom texted me a picture the other day of a chicken coop she bought. And then I was like, oh, that's awesome. So I guess you're getting chickens. Like, I didn't even, like, she's always thought about it. And so when she texted me a picture of the chicken coop, I was like, oh, I guess you're getting chickens. She's like, yeah. She's like, I'm still deciding, if I want to get chicks or whatever. And like 2 hours later, she texts me. She's like, well, I guess I got chicks. And she had this whole like big setup of like chicks and the heat lamp and the this and that. Like, she's like, get your mind on something and just go and like, get it done. Yeah, exactly. Just like, oh, this seems like a fun problem to solve. Let's go do this. This is exciting.
My wife is really excited now that we have some acreage. We just have about under 4 acres at the new property, the new homestead. She's like, wouldn't you want fresh eggs every day? There's always like always an angle,
right.
But I also know us, and like I was like, man, in a year I'll be like, here's our alpacas and our this dude. And I want like, it's just cool to have the potential to
your own little petting zoo. That'd be. Do you like a whole little petting zoo and have kids like they go to this station, and then the last station is just me and you smoking cigars, like, and here's the domesticated wildebeests, Eric and Gary.
I don't know. I think it was in the 1920s or 30s. The Bronx Zoo had an exhibit called "The Most Dangerous Animal in the World," and when you went up to it, it was just a mirror.
That's funny.
Isn't that crazy? Like, it was man. And
yeah.
That's the 20s and 30s. Like, they knew like we were just.
In the 20s and 30s. Really.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, we are obviously like crazy animals that just.
I think about that when you
we
drive.
We ravage the earth. Like we moved everything in our path.
Right. Or we're like, well, we live here, so it's ours. Like, oh, forget about the fish, forget about this. Like, just we got to deal with it.
We're an apex predator. What can I say? Apex predator is gonna predator.
I like that. That's a shirt.
Apex predator is gonna predator. What can you say?
Can you? I mean, just we're gonna throw our trash in the ocean. Whatever, we need it. In space. just throw that.
That's the one thing that is weird. Like when I
can't litter in the street. Get a ticket.
Well, what's funny is, like, going on the walks all the time, and sometimes it dawns on me how the street, like the drains on the street, sometimes I'll actually see one right next to a creek, and like you can see, like that's where it goes, and like it's like something like we know this, that ultimately, when the rain comes down on the street, it's going in there, and it's making its way to an ocean eventually. A lot of times, and it is weird. Like, it's a weird thought, because then what I can't help but like in my head it just immediately goes to like this weird just dumping trash in the water, like oil and carcinogens. And
I think about it even more now that we have well water instead of sewer, instead of city water. And I'm like, well, the city water, you could taste the chemicals and stuff in there, but at least it was clean. Here's just a really deep hole, and let's hope that it filters naturally.
Luckily, your well water tastes good.
It was.
Sometimes you go to somebody's house and the well water, and that just is what it is. That's just.
I looked at that was one thing.
I mean, I like some water with some flavor personally, but some bite to it.
a little grit.
Yeah.
So speaking of being in a new area, you don't think things you don't think about. My son was like, "Hey, Dad, I want a haircut before Easter or whatever," and I was like, "Man, the haircut place we went to for 10 years, or the friend we had that was right down the road that cut our hair." So I'm looking, and I found a place that's a barbershop, tattoo parlor combined. Old school, they do shaves and this, because my beard's a mess. I look like Ted Kaczynski just got out of the thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, before I get fed up and just take it down, I want to actually go to someone who knows what they're doing. So I called and I was like, do you do children as well? Because my boys want to cut. He's like, oh yeah. And I was like, maybe you could take a look at some of the tattoos I have and see what you think about touching them up.
Wait, it's the same guy does the...
It's the same place. So literally,
Have you been there yet?
I drove past once and I talked to the owner 2 days ago.
Okay.
He's like, we have a guy that does really well with children. I was like, my children are really big. They're not kids afraid of haircuts. He's like, no, but this guy, he's a younger dude. He plays every video game. He'll be able to talk to them. He's like, let me know when you bring the boys. We'll set them up for here. He's like, we can do the cut and then we'll do a tattoo consult. It's just a cool thought.
I was even telling when are you going? Do you have an appointment or?
No, but I'm going to probably go next week because I'm off for school. Come up and take a look because I thought of you with your No Ma'am tattoo. Because my wife and I were thinking of getting a commemorative tattoo of our old address, where things got started and we got married and had all 3 kids. So, and I was thinking small one-off in a cool spot, kind of where you have yours. And our old address was 7, and I was like, ooh, maybe I could do a 7 with the Yankees kind of theme, and it looked like Mantle's number 7 with pinstripes or something.
Right.
But, so it's kind of double meaning. But just thinking ideas, but. I'm like, while you're getting your haircut, imagine getting a consult for getting your tattoos as well.
That's my dream business is to open. I want to open where it would be a building with sort of different units in it, but kind of open air. I have this sort of vision in my head, and actually having things in there. I would like to have a butcher, barbecue shop kind of thing, a barber shop, a tattoo shop, a couple other things that I've thought of that would just be really cool and have it. You could do food trucks outside. You could do all this stuff. Yeah, just sort of a guy's playground kind of thing, or girls, but just that kind of vibe. Is my dream business. That's the pinnacle. That's what the business, cigar shop in there, all lounge, all of it, in one sort of central area.
You could just be called the place you never have to leave.
Right. Yeah. I just think that so it's I've never seen one. I've never that comes even close to what I had in my mind. So I'm super curious about that. I mean, if it's the same guy doing both, I'm going to be skeptical.
I don't think it's the same guy doing both, but I wonder that would be a great question for him. How were you a barber and a guy that had a lot of tattoos, and then you said, oh, maybe I can combine both my passions or whatever. But I will say the beard culture, the tattoo culture, the cigar culture. There's a lot of mismatch, where you see that coming
and
together.
Then when you have a place like that, it becomes a great place to go do could be before, go get some shaves before a wedding, a bridal party, go get some
pick
shaves
up
together.
some cigars and a thing,
Exactly, it becomes a stop, not the bachelor party, but maybe a stop on the bachelor party, or
absolutely,
or in between, just the day before the wedding or something like that.
Yeah, but it looked really cool, and I was like, I got to give this this place a call. Even my wife's like, that's great. That's something the kids and I can get you gift certificates to, for Father's Day and stuff. You get a shave or a haircut or a tattoo or something. I was like, yeah, that's really cool. So, barbershop, tattoo shop.
That'd be cool. And then my buddy, it's also fun to think about because one of my best friends, Jay, he's getting into butchering and is
what a
super
cool
into
hobby to
meats
get into.
And stuff. I know, and hopefully he'll be on one of our episodes soon. But so we just have those conversations oh, how cool would it be to have all these things and sometimes they're just dreams, sometimes they're potential realities. You never know.
Yeah, and now that what you'll learn with the in the food service industry, you never know. You can kind of bring all that.
Well, exactly. These are all everything you learn. Every new thing you get into, I feel is just more training towards applying to something else. I definitely I'm not the type of person that I'm going to do one thing for the rest of my life. I definitely know that about myself by now. So every step on the journey like just helps with the next. And like you were saying, because I was in business so much, like I just got used to spreadsheets and things like that. So now that I had to do all the package for the loan, all these other people are getting into it, and this is their first step into business. Now they're really intimidated by having to put this package together for the SBA, and I'm helping use turning my stuff into templates to help other people get into their first franchise. Even though I'm still doing it for the first time.
When I did this way back 3.5 weeks ago.
Exactly, yeah.
But it's also nice that you've done it. Like if you're a business owner, you may have done that 15, 20 years ago when the process looked very, very different. So you kind of have the benefit of someone who's like, I've done it successfully. Plus,
and recently. I just got approved for the loan. So I'm like, here's a package that I know it works. Now you have to apply your own personal financial situations to it. I can't guarantee you're going to get approved, but hey, like just use my templates. You're going to start
to get mail that's like, you've been approved for this too. You're like, oh, I guess I'm selling dog shampoo also. That's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. So how's the cigar? Any changes for you?
No, really steady, but steady in those different flavors. Mm-hmm. Like that. This is one where I can honestly taste the different pieces of wrapper.
You really can,
in separate entities. It's really cool.
Puffs. And so, what's interesting is, like you were saying before, we always talk about, or you more so talk about the journey of the thirds. And what's interesting is this is almost like a journey of the 30 seconds.
You're right.
Like every 1/32nd, you jump. You're getting a little bit of a different flavor.
And you almost forget what the other one was. Like I'll get through that deep chocolate flavor, and it'll mellow out to that sun-grown, and then it'll mellow out to the lighter wrapper. And then I'm like, oh wow, this is really creamy. And then you'll hit the chocolate again, and you're like, oh right, it goes back to that. I forgot. Mm-hmm. Like, I wonder how the barber pole style started, because it can't be easy to roll this cigar.
No, I honestly think I think it's newer, and I think it's mostly just it started as like a marketing aesthetic thing, for sure.
But this is one where I can honestly taste that precision that they wrapped it. Like you're smoking it the way it was intended. Like
That's
you're
true.
tasting.
I've only had a couple barber poles personally.
Me too. I actually shied away from them.
Me too. Well, I can't say I've shied away from them. It's just that we both had that one barber pole Candela. I forget what it was, but and we didn't like it.
Yeah.
And so I think ever since then is when I had been like, not so much on the barber poles, but.
And the other thing I like that we talk about a lot is, we talked about like, wow, we love this stick. We would smoke it again, but we're really excited to try something different. Like we're at that journey, like we talk about journey through the thirds of one cigar, but like journey through the lines of cigars. Like, wow, we really like this stick. I wonder what else Veritas puts out, because I really enjoyed this. I know this will be a steady and I'd love to have it again, but my head always jumps to, what's the next stick I'm going to have that I really, really like?
Well, and then Plasencia, right? We did the Alma Forte before.
Right.
We loved it. Now they just came out with another one. It's called Alma Forte something else, but it looks like it has
wrapper.
Everything's different. It looks like it has nothing to do with the Alma Forte line, but it's another Plasencia cigar. Most of we like their cigars, and we're going to try that one at some point. Mm-hmm. So. Really bizarre that it's a completely different blend. I think they're capitalizing on the Alma Forte name, I think.
Because wasn't that voted like one of the top cigars in the last year or two?
Yeah, so I think it's just a marketing thing. Like, let's just use that name again because it worked, even though it's a completely different cigar. But we're gonna fall for it.
Yeah. And not even fall for it. We're gonna utilize what they, you talk about a lot in the craft beer world, that you have to kind of stand out. And the cigar world is kind of on that cusp of now there is just this boom of guys our age and even younger. Like the flavored cigars, as much as they are a gateway to natural and more typical cigar smoking, that's the boom. Like Acid and Drew Estate kind of started it or capitalized on it. And now you're starting to see all that. Like there's youth in the cigars where it was like an old, it's not just grandpa sitting by the fireplace.
So Jason Lois, who they brought on as the CEO of Veritas, I was reading the press release from when he came on, and the founder of Veritas had said something like, we like the swagger that he brings. And he does. He looks, when you look at his Instagram, he's like a younger, hipster kind of guy. Tattoos, that kind of thing. Just reminds you a little bit in a way of like the Ovea Negra stuff, and James Brown and that kind of stuff. So that is,
and what Jonathan Drew, yeah,
exactly,
in the '90s,
when he was young. But no, like
Yeah, just in general.
That's 30
seeing
years
that
ago.
movement,
You know what I mean?
which is cool because it's also, like Veritas says, like, that ain't us. We're just regular guys. It starts to feel like, there's brands out there that we can gravitate to. At first for us it was Drew Estate, which is, and we still obviously have love for Drew Estate. But at the same time, we got into them. We got into cigar smoking when they had transcended from that sort of everyman thing to they're just this powerhouse now with a huge umbrella of brands. And so while they still have good sticks, we can't necessarily say that like the brand aligns with who we are as people. Right. Not that that matters in everything we do. No. I don't, if I like Mountain Dew, I don't really care if Pepsi aligns with me as a person. So that's not really what I'm saying. But
no, I get it.
When you're looking at their Instagram page or their marketing in general, or you're talking about the stick, of course it's cool to have something that you can relate to, I think.
Right, and when you look at owners, approachable, being able to shoot someone a message and get a response, I still get excited when we tag somebody in a post and they either repost it or reply. I'm like, wow, because in our head, these are untouchable people that we'll never meet or know.
Yeah.
And they looked at what the two little guys from South Jersey are doing with photos and reviews.
Right.
That's kind of cool.
For sure.
But no, it is cool to see like this youth. And now we're not even the young cigar smokers. I'm going to be 40. We're probably inching closer to the old school smokers than like
40
the kids.
is the new 30. 40 is the new 25.
40 is the new 60, I feel like right now. But no, it is cool. There's, the boom, and like with bourbon's rejuvenating, and like you see in all these cool
rye
things.
Is rejuvenating.
Rye is rejuvenating.
That's an interesting one. I think.
And I wish I was more of a rye guy. I'm just not. It's just too spicy for me. Mm-hmm. I picked up Four Roses just as my entry level into bourbon. And I'm just starting to realize like that rye, it has a higher rye content, which, it's good, but I'm like looking for something that's sweeter.
I just started to learn that myself. I never really paid attention to the difference between bourbon and rye. I just kind of knew I gravitated towards bourbon, but more recently, I think I had actually won a rye from one of the groups that we're in and did more of like a mindful sort of taste on the rye compared to bourbon. And that's why I realized, I'm like, I definitely like the bourbon. It's more mellowed out.
But I really feel like in everything, alcohol, cigars, you have to be on the forefront of what's going on. You have your bread and butter, what you sell, but new people are turning 21 and are getting into cigars and alcohol every day, every week, every year. So if you don't...
It just sounds kind of weird to say, because then the next evolution, the next words that were going to come out of my mouth is their marketing has to evolve to a younger crowd. And then that starts to feel weird, saying like, oh yeah, like how do we prey on younger and younger people to get them into smoking?
It's
but
true. Joe Camel.
Yeah, I know. I don't feel great about saying that either, which is weird, but there's a truth to it, like in that.
But I'm reminded every time I go to like a Wawa or a 7-Eleven and you see those, you can't purchase tobacco unless you were born like, and I'm like, what? 2000? Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's crazy,
Yeah, like, you can't purchase tobacco unless you were born, like, at least within 5 years of Vanilla Ice after he was famous. And you're like, whoa. Like
Vanilla Ice the rapper, or when he was doing the home repair show?
Yeah,
like, wait, which Vanilla Ice?
Yeah, exactly. You could be born after. I mean, because, literally, I think, his smash breakthrough album, Vanilla Ice, I forget what it was called. But that came out in like 91.
To the Extreme, I
think it was
right?
To the Extreme. And it was
91.
91, I think. So, boom. You could be born after that album dropped and still buy tobacco.
I saw Jinko was coming back with like their flary jeans, or at least as a brand. Are Cavaricci's gonna like?
I wonder what Jinko's been doing for the last few years. Do you think they're just like hiding in a room, like
we're waiting for the cusp. The wave's gonna come back. I promise. We're gonna surf it.
There's no way they're gonna come back like in their old style. Like, I remember it got to the point in middle school where kids would see like the bigger, to where you try to get jeans that flare out like 3 feet around you, and that just like it became more and more obnoxious.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous.
And I'm like,
that was not a good fad.
I appreciate the fad, but as a huskier guy, I'm like, where was that when I was like really youthful? Because I really could have used that extra room in my thighs and in the seat of my jeans.
I never got into I guess that's skater. Jinko, is that more skater? But it's not really, because those massively wide, like they're not practical.
It's not functional at all. No.
So
I don't know where
it's more like
from.
the punk ska kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess that works. But again, they're just so like, think of how much material and heavy and just.
Wow, it's obnoxious.
If it rained, I would watch the rain like creep up to like the calf, You're like, oh man. I never had. I think I had one pair of Jinkos, but never the big flare ones.
You know, one of the other things you learn in the Marine Corps is if you're in the water, how to take your camouflage pants off, tie the 2 feet together, wrap them around your head, splash air into them, and like turn your pants into a life.
I had to do that for my life-saving merit badge in the Scouts. # Boy Scouts.
How far did you get?
I made it to Eagle. I'm an Eagle Scout.
We probably talked about this.
I don't know that we did.
I feel like this came up.
It may have, but
I
also feel like
less about you after.
I feel like I'm like not a very worthy. Like I love the Scouts, but it's like people are like, oh man, if we get trapped in the woods, I was like, nah, you should probably still have like fire starters and stuff. I'm not going to be like Bear Grylls.
Yeah, I think we did talk about this because I think I had mentioned then too that if you're an Eagle Scout when you join the Marine Corps, you come out of boot camp 1 rank higher than everybody else. I think we had mentioned that, which is crazy because it's not like the Scouts were like always the most like toughest kids that were going to translate to the best. You know what I mean? Like they were the ones that made it to Eagle Scout usually were nerds. I'm sorry.
I wish I was a nerd, but I'm not. I don't know that I categorized as anything. We talk about this though that we were kind of all encompassing. Yeah. And I think that's why we enjoy a lot of different things. And going back to what you said about cigars and alcohol and everything, like haircuts and tattoos, like things become a passion. And having this release and having this passion, having something that isn't your job, isn't your career, but it's something you enjoy and you spend money on and time and resources because you enjoy it and you want to share that with people, that's 90% of the reason we're doing this, learning about something, just like you are with, doing I'm going to say it, consulting with what you are doing.
Free consulting.
Free, I was going to say, yeah, you're missing the boat.
Really bad consultant. All right, man, let's wrap this guy up.
Absolutely.
And so sort of my final thoughts on it are going to be, it's an $11 stick, so depending on your budget, maybe that's a kind of an everyday smoke, maybe it's not. I would say the quality of it certainly puts it in everyday smoke. I would also say, though, that the uniqueness of it kind of, I think the uniqueness of it would wear off if you were to smoke something like this every day. So I'm going to say it's not an everyday smoke. I'm going to say it's an affordable special occasion smoke. So, you maybe your everyday smokes are a $7 smoke, and you want something that's going to go a little bit more expensive than that, and also be a pretty special treat and a pretty special journey.
Yeah.
That's where I think this fits in. For somebody whose everyday smoke is maybe like that $10 or $11 smoke, then I would say just have a couple of these on hand.
On rotation.
On rotation. When you want something that's going to be a little bit of a special, like I have some sticks that I break out for quote kind of special occasions, but it's not like a marriage or like a birth, like $40, $30 massive expensive stick.
I think you hit the nail on the head with it. I think this is a good, I'm just going to call it a bachelor party stick, not because it's crazy expensive, but because it's an experience stick. This is something that I think you'd remember. Be like, wow, I was tasting 3 wrappers all at once.
Well, and I think actually that's a good way to say too. Like you could bring this to a bachelor party where there's going to be 6 guys, ranging from has a cigar once every 10 years to somebody that has a cigar regularly, a couple times a week maybe. And you could bring 6 of these for all, and you're going to please everybody. That person who never smokes, they're not going to get all the nuances of this stick that an experience.
But it's not overpowering. It's not scary.
It's not scary. It's not strong at all.
No,
it's a very approachable stick.
Approachable, enjoyable, flavorful. I'm loving it, and it's the kind of cigar that makes me want to really try with the rest of the.
We've got a couple more of their sticks too.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they're.
The other sticks that we have are not barber pulls, but they're got a couple unbanded early releases, which is going to be cool to try out, and then the couple that are actually darker, which are really in our wheelhouse, that we're excited to try too. So definitely
if you see them, pick them up.
Veritas. Worth checking out. So thanks everybody, and as always, long ashes.
Stay smoky, everybody.
What's up, everybody? I am Eric. This is Gary. Today we are smoking the 3 blends. It's a newer barber pull from Veritas Cigars with 3 different wrappers. Super cool smoke. And today is opening day of baseball. It's April Fool's Day. We're really just talking about new beginnings, sharing some great stories, having a couple laughs as always. This is Cedar Culture. Thanks for checking out the Cedar Culture podcast. If you'd like that episode, go ahead, tap like, follow, subscribe, whatever it is on your platform of choice. And if you are on YouTube, hit that bell as well to be notified of new episodes. It really helps us out. We appreciate it.
And then don't forget to head over to Instagram and Facebook and follow us as well.
Do it.
Do it.